All right, then. Looks like we're live. So, yeah, for anybody who's not in the know and anybody who might have missed, just because this is a bit unusual, Wednesday evening here in Moscow. So, Wednesday early in the first half of the workday for everybody in the States. What I'm going to be doing here is just going to quickly be going over some of the best music. I'm going to try and do this every single week from now on. And so yeah, obviously it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable for people in the States, but I guess maybe if you have work that will allow you to tune in, then hey, cool. Otherwise, you can check it out later on. And I'm guessing that most people either forgot or didn't realize that this was happening, which is fine. I probably didn't do a very good job of passing the information on. So in a lot of ways, we'll just have this first music live stream kind of be a learning session for myself as to how this is going to work. So basically what I want to do is each week on Wednesday, just because that's how the first 7 days ended. The seventh day of the week was on yesterday, on Tuesday. So that means today, the 8th, is when I'm going to do the first stream. I'm going to take each 7 days of music that come at me here in Russia. I'm going to look at all the genres. Spoiler or whatever. This first week, it's going to be a lot of metal. So just kind of keep that in mind. But obviously, as the year progresses, as we get further into the calendar, further away from the holidays, there can be more indie, more electronic stuff as well, even some rap. And yeah, I'm just going to take a look at which albums are maybe worth your attention. I honestly have quite a few that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. A few of those are EPs. So obviously that's 13. And then just to give you an idea, there's another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, probably another 13 albums, which I thought were kind of garbage and not worth your attention. So we're just going to get into it. I'm also going to start out with some talk about singles. Now, I think as we progress into this series here over the course of the next year, over the course of 2025, feels weird to say, I'm going to spend less time focusing on singles and more time focusing on albums. What I will do, and I will share links in the video description as we go along. I don't know why I closed it. Spotify. So I have all of the albums that I'm going to be talking about, all of the music I'm going to be talking about is either going to be available on Bandcamp or Spotify. Unfortunately, if it is a release that is not available on either of those platforms, I will not be talking about it just because if you're in Russia, you can find Russian music on your own. If you are outside of Russia, then you kind of are probably relying on Spotify for the most part. Bandcamp is also a good option. So anyway, I will go ahead. I'm going to just throw up the link to the singles list. I'm going to throw up a link to that right now in the chat. So it will be there in the chat for anybody who's watching right now. And for anybody who's watching the live stream with the chat in the future, it will be there too. I will also put it in a description of the video as well, as long with links to the other albums and whatnot that we're going to talk about. So as was maybe to be expected, the first week of 2025 of, the new year was kind of dead just because it was holidays here in Russia. In fact, today, January 8th, is the last day of holidays. So it's still kind of dead. Everybody is slowly getting back into the idea of having to go back to work tomorrow. But for the most part, not yet. So, however, there were some releases, a slow trickle to be sure, but a number of singles though. The first one I want to talk about is from a group, and I guess I can go ahead and I'm just going to share my. Can I not share the? Hold on. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I can. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I got Spotify up there. So this is the list of music. I can kind of expand it a little bit there. Yeah, that's nice. So this is a list of music that you will see when you go to it, and there are a few here I want to talk about. I'm going to go in the order that I have them here, not the order that I have written my notes on. So the first one I think, which is worth noting, is that first one right there, Uvula, or Uvula in English. Um, the reason this is kind of a big deal is Uvula. I'm probably butchering that in Russian, but Uvula. They're probably one of the bigger names in Russian indie music, and this is their first song since early 2022. So nobody had kind of heard anything from them for the last few years. So when they popped up on music platforms in the first days of 2025, it is giving people who are interested in indie music a little bit of some hope that we might actually see a record this year. For anybody who's interested in what the music sounds like, it's kind of this like dreamy indie rock type stuff. I can play a little bit. This is why I have headphones in today too. So I'm pretty sure I have the audio sharing on too. Otherwise, this is going to be really awkward. But so just kind of like some nice light. It kind of carries on like this for a little bit. You get the idea. But people have compared them to the Russian Smiths. I don't know if that's the best comparison, but so yeah, something along those lines. Just your kind of standard indie fare. YouTube obviously hates anytime you play music. Even if you do a live stream, this video is probably going to get algorithmed into oblivion. But I guess whatever. I'm partly doing this for myself too, because just so you know, then I'll be able to do a recap at the end of each month a little bit easier. Okay, so that was probably the biggest single to be released this week. Beyond that, baldemoboy, which is a hell of a name, I know, and Kun- Kuntenir. I don't know exactly how you say the name of the song. The reason this was kind of big is because baldemoboy released one of my favorite under the radar kind of rap albums of 2024. And I know I've been talking about how I'm going to do my 2024 music year in review here in Russia, but I'm getting on it. The thing is, baldemoboy, and when you listen to the single, you kind of will get the same vibe. Um, it's just kind of this weird eclectic mix, right? When the song starts off, there's this little indie guitar loop that plays over it. He uses a lot of these kind of glitchy computer electronic effects, and then his lyrics, just by and large, are this kind of mix of exasperation and pent up energy. So again, I'm just gonna play a little bit so you can get the general idea of what I'm talking about. I was really impressed by his. I guess it was probably an EP. No, it was more of an album last year. So yeah, I'm kind of hoping that he will release something else coming this next year. So yeah, just like real simple start right here, and then it's gonna pick up in just a second. So yeah, I mean, it's got a lot of that kind of indie rap vibes, which is fair because it is definitely strongly in the indie rap category. But it's also, I don't know, that kind of rave beat that's going on with it too. It's doing its own thing. So beyond that, we have Alba Warden here with Zver. Now, obviously, we can't really talk much about Russian music, especially modern Russian music, without getting into a discussion of post punk. And the next song after that too is also kind of a post punk thing. Alba Warden, I would say, is definitely more post punky than the next track in this singles list. And the one thing that I think, it's almost cheating, but the melody to this song, and you'll hear it in just a second, the melody to this song is literally like one or two notes away from Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division. And it kind of feels cheap, like a cheap move, but at the same time, it works so well, and it kind of gets you into the song a little bit. So let me know if I'm off on the level tear us apart thing, but I'm that's the vibe I'm getting. Obviously, not in the beginning, but you can kind of hear in the progression there. So we got kind of a classic post punk vibe going on right here. It's- But this right here. Again, love will tear us apart again. I mean, yeah, it is love will tear us apart. So I don't know. There's not much I can do about that. I'm gonna stop sharing for just a second. I have this paranoia because again, this is the first time I'm doing this. I'm gonna put it back up in a second. I just want to make sure also share audio. Yep. Okay. So I can only do that if I'm okay. So yep, that makes a lot of sense. Let me go ahead and get Spotify open here on my um, browser because I just realized that yes, when you are streaming on YouTube, you can only share the audio if it's running through either a tab or through your entire screen. So I apologize for the last three songs. That is my bad. Um, but we'll get into this back again here. Um, let me go ahead then and share that. Let me just make sure. Okay, so now we're up. We should have audio. Um, Let me just double check. I just realized I was not sharing. Also share tab audio. Again, it's the first time I'm doing this, so you're gonna have to cut me a little bit of slack here. But okay, so yeah, you'll have to go back and listen to those first three songs. They are definitely worth your time. Um, but unfortunately, I'm just not going to go back and play them again. In fact, I'm just going to kind of move along a little bit faster. Lympha again has a little bit of a post punk vibe to it. How do I have it written down here? Actually, I will play this one here. The drive. I feel like the bass line of this one really reminds me of Modest Mouse's A Different City. If you're familiar with some of their early work, so it's post punk, but kind of Modest Mousey. I don't know. Well, we'll give it a go. Yeah, there, right? Quite. It's got the drive, that kind of dark atmosphere of early Modest Mouse, and again, specifically A Different City by Modest Mouse. But and again, um, let me know if you're hearing the same kind of um, vibe that I was getting there too. Okay, the next two tracks I've got here are by Trayman Открытая дверь, which is a two-track single. I'm not going to get into this one too much. I will play a little bit. Basically, this reminds me a little bit of a mix between what I would say the Postal Service and, for people who know a little bit more about Russian music, Mujus. It's this kind of airy, melancholic with these backing electronic or these backing electronic tracks. Although the singer does really feel like he's trying to emulate Ilya Lagutenko from Mumitrol, uh, another famous Russian band for those who might not know. So not bad. It's definitely kind of it has a midwinter sort of vibe. So it's definitely those electronics in the background, very, very much like the Postal Service. This the audio sample that you use here with the woman talking about snow is a little bit too on the nose, in my opinion. But yeah, like Mumitrol meets um, the Postal Service. So yeah. Beyond that, I'm gonna skip over the next few, just because some of these I added in, um, and then rearranged. Wasn't really gonna plan on talking about them. Non or none flex, I suppose you say. Pitля. This is just your kind of what I would call radio TikTok friendly metal. Um, by and large, it's pretty forgettable, but at the same time, it's not bad by any means. It's got the kind of these like soft sung vocals that kind of like got that whispered, edgy vibe going on, and then they go into these like big soaring choruses, a lot of clean guitar tones and backing synths. The drums have this really crisp sound, and then where would it be modern metal without some sort of breakdown um, at the bridge? But we'll play a little bit of that too, just so you get an idea. I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit. There's a kind of whispered, tense vocals. I don't want to say like trapped or anything like that, but kind of got this kind of soaring vocal nonsense there. But it's fine. It's not the best thing ever, but for the first week of 2025, it's fully acceptable. Again, we're going to skip around a little bit. And I think the last single I'm going to talk about here is Umerla, down here at the bottom, Cura Te Ipsum. I'm describing this as hardcore punk light, which I realize is a bit of an oxymoron, but that's just kind of the vibe. And it's not bad. It's definitely good. There's a little bit, I think, probably some prong inspiration going on here. I feel like this is also something that might play well on, like maybe TikTok. Is I don't do TikTok, but I know metal is kind of seeing a resurgence there. So just give it a short listen here. Like, kind of got a little bit of that edgier hardcore punk thing going on. The shouting, like chain gang vocals, yeah. So yeah, I mean, like I said, hardcore kind of hardcore punk, but light in some sense. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. Definitely worth checking out. I know they have an EP that released a few years ago, so hopefully we'll see something more from this group as well in 2025. But all right, okay, so we're through the singles right now, which is fine. I'm going to talk about uh, two EPs right now. No, we're going to talk about. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to go kind of through this as I got it right here. And yeah, so we're going to start with one EP because there isn't this first week of the year. We had a few electronic releases. We had one jazzy release, a rap release, and then a bunch of metal releases. So the one EP that I'm going to talk about next is actually as close as we're going to get to like kind of an indie release. Um, but it is, let me find it down here. It is Извращённая zima by DISDEAD. This is, it's like the indie garage rock. It feels very heavily inspired by the Strokes. And I would say that the singer, who, judging by the photos available on Yandex Music at any rate, appears to be like maybe just out of school, but it does feel like he is trying to emulate Julian Casablancas of the Strokes quite a bit, which is fine. Like it's not a bad sound. This isn't quite Julian Casablancas, but there's definitely some strokes happening here. So, and again, I'm not like the biggest garage rock fan, so but it's not bad. And let's be real, like all three tracks together on this EP, you're looking at under 7 minutes worth of music, so it's not a huge time sink if it's something that you want to look into. Okay, now I am. Oh no, not yet. We're gonna jump over to this album right here, which is it's by Sam Electronics or Same Electronics. I'm not entirely sure how we pronounce this name right here. And God help me with the album title, which is weltempfanger. Um, yeah, this is an electronic release, and this is an electronic release that's a little bit all over the place. It's a hodgepodge of different styles, which is fine. Like it's kind of got um, it keeps you on your toes, I suppose I should say, as you're listening to it. You've got things, you've got some trap beats mixed into there. There's some chip tune music, as you know, you might find in the song "Current." Like, give this a listen here, real fast. Like that, there's like a chip tune atmosphere, but then it also leads into like this sort of heavier, um, bassy electronic sort of thing. Um, Uh, there's some tracks that are just ambient electronic noise. There's a little bit of stuff even there's I would maybe say like borderline IDM. Radio Dreams here definitely has a bit of a synth wave thing going on. Um, you know, yeah, this is very synth wavy. And then even we have the kind of glitch beats that you might find on a track like Generator. So yeah, I mean, not everybody's cup of tea to be sure, but if you like electronic music and you like a bunch of different styles, and you're familiar with the different variations of that genre, or it's not really a genre of that branch of music, then yeah, definitely this album is going to have at least probably a few tracks you're going to be interested in. And if you have again like a deep love of electronic music, then you're probably going to be able to enjoy quite a few of the tracks on the album. So, okay, now I have to stop sharing that tab because the next track, or sorry, next, not track, the next album that I'm going to talk about is actually only available on Bandcamp. So, okay. And it's by this artist right here, Boots, with the album Collector. And I want to talk about Boots for a second because when we actually go back to this music label, I don't know if it's DJ Easy Music or Jez Music. I'm assuming it's Jez, but when you actually go to their music label, can I not just go to the music label? Okay. Well, now I feel stupid. Um, Anyway, you can see here, I'll just go to the discography. There we go. All right. You can see that they have quite a few. In fact, they have almost 80 releases, and you'll see some names come up again and again. Maybe not a ton, but like Boots is here twice, Trabs. So the thing with this record label, or this, I don't know, it's not a record label, this musical project, I would say, is that this is all electronic music made by machines. And I understand that AI music is kind of a big thing right now. And I just to give everybody a heads up, I'm gonna be talking about the Collector album by the Boots algorithm and the Opes album by the Minc algorithm, but I'm gonna focus on Collector. So the thing here is this is it's not AI in the sort of I'm sure at this point in time we've all heard AI generated music and like there's something fun to it and it can be good, but it's very formulaic. They feed it a bunch of tracks and then it just kind of spits out variations of that. This is a little bit different. So what they do is they use algorithms. The tracks are all based on algorithms, um, and the algorithms are all based on mathematical principles, right? So what you end up getting are these it's an odd variation of tracks. Sometimes the tracks are very melodic. So, for example, in C1 here, there's definitely something melodic to it. Once it decides to load, I'm on a VPN, so you're gonna have to bear with me sometimes with the. Ah, wait, I take that back. I'm sorry. This was one of the tracks that I had clarified is not that melodic. Yeah, like it is. It is a bit off. Um, but even this lack of melody, there's something kind of hypnotic about it, right? Like it doesn't feel like a machine necessarily, even though there is something rhythmic about it, and it feels like something's trying to coalesce here, even though obviously these aren't just numbers and algorithms throwing this together here. So there is something kind of interesting about this project, I guess is what I would say. Now, what I would say between the two they mentioned, the Collector album by Boots and the Opes album by Minc, I guess I'll pronounce that. Um, I would say that the Collector album by Boots is probably a more interesting listen. The one, um, the other one, the Opes album feels just too open. And in fact, if you go on Vkontakte and you can read Russian, there is actually an explanation on the jazz music VK page, which explains how the algorithm was set up for each and every single one of these albums, which I think is really interesting. So I don't think I'm going to. Obviously, there are going to be more albums from this group that come out, or this project that come out over the course of this next year. But I'm not going to spend too much time focusing on them. If you are interested in this as a concept, then like definitely check them out. But as it stands, yeah, um, yeah. All right, so that is that, and we are going back to Spotify now. So let me go ahead. All right, now we're going to get into another group whose name I don't know how to pronounce. Kbkbts, Kbkbts. Period. This is really just straightforward. Not going to take a lot of time to explain. Their album radiovolny. This is just lo-fi hip hop beats, but the emphasis is on the hip hop beats end of things. There's a lot of these jazzy samples and instruments that are thrown in there. I think overall the effect that they're going for is this definitely nostalgic throwback vibe. The artwork kind of even alludes to that with this, these guys cruising around in a car. It feels like the type of music that your memory could like auto fill in um, for days back when we were younger and just rolling around. So, like for example, got that jazzy. Seriously, what is going on? Okay, we got that jazzy sample right there. But then that just laid back, definitely lo-fi, but it is very much just like that kind of hip hop beat. So if you like lo-fi beats to study or work to, then give this a shot, I suppose, is what I'm getting at. So yeah. All right. That's all that we have more or less for the electronic thing. I know that that's kind of a hip hop album. This one right here, radiovolny. Um, but I'm still kind of putting the electronics section just because there's not actually any vocals on the top of it. All right, and the last one here before we move into actual hip hop and then we move into metal, just to give everybody heads up, is I guess they called it an EP, but at like I don't know, over 25 minutes long. This feels, I guess technically it's an EP. Anyway, it's Namёki, which is hints. And I'm gonna probably butcher this man's last name, but it's Vladimir Peri Переверзев or Переверзев. I don't know exactly where the udarение is there. Um, I'm highlighting this because based on what I saw just from music releases last year, there aren't a lot of jazzy albums, and this is definitely just a jazz EP. Just kind of laid back. It's the type of album that, yeah, honestly, at the start of the year, when everything's kind of dark and still, and especially over the winter holidays here in Russia, this is the type of music that you want to put on and just kind of like chill to. I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit here, obviously. Now, I'm not an expert in jazz by any means, so I'm not going to be able to comment on the skill or the quality of the instrumentation, the solos, the improvisation, things of that. It's just nice. It's just a nice change of pace when considering the fact that, again, like I said, most of the time throughout the year, when I'm looking at new releases, it's going to be indie music or electronic or metal or rap. So, yeah, I'm going to highlight jazz releases, maybe even classical releases if they come my way. There's just something nice about this. And I feel like by and large, we don't listen to a lot of jazz just in general. And so, yeah, every once in a while, it's nice to have a little half hour of it to just sort of, I don't know, do your Charlie Brown thing, I guess. So, yeah, give this a shot. As I said, too, all of the links to the albums are going to be in the video description at the end of this. The Spotify playlist for the singles, which I will be updating throughout the course of the year, is in the chat currently. But yeah, let's move on to the one rap album, which is Morocco by NikBro, which is not the best name, NikBro. Now, Morocco, I'm not entirely sure what that's slang for. Obviously, I'm going to guess narcotics of some type because of how frequently he throws it out there, but I might be wrong. Um, so let's talk about this album. It's the only rap release of the first week of 2025, and it's all right, is what I'm going to say. The beats and the production, I will say, probably do most of the lifting. Most of the tracks here, as you can see, the vast majority are, well, maybe not the vast majority, but the majority are under 2 minutes in length. The longest one, obviously, you can see is 2 minutes and 34 seconds. So it's not very long. It honestly feels more like a mixtape than an album. And I honestly do believe that NikBro does call it a mixtape at one point in time on the actual album. Ultimately, what this feels like is NikBro had just a bunch of verses written in a notebook somewhere, and he went out and then he just gathered up a bunch of like really solid beats, but then didn't bother attempting to take those verses he had and try to expand on them. Just like, I've got 3 verses here, I can fill up a minute and 45 seconds. That's good. Perfect. So again, it kind of has like a mixtape feel where it's just like maybe NikBro is just out here trying to get his name out there, which is probably the case. I have not heard of NikBro before. Um, and I understand that currently, especially in hip hop and a lot of other genres, that with the explosion of TikTok and short form video content, that there is a heavier emphasis now on shorter songs because they can feature more heavily in a video over the course of a video. And yeah, it's like the music industry is transforming in some sectors to fit this new format, which is fine. I get that. Um, but yeah, ultimately, a lot of this music feels really heavily dependent on phrases that NikBro seems to love a lot, like "Havayu mas." Oh my god, sorry, my Russian. I've been in English long, so he uses words like swag, ghetto, onion. I don't know what that means. Morocco, he says all the time. He also uses phrase like "Havayu Havayu mas." Oh my god, sorry, "Havayu miasa." моя малая в тонусе. Like these хаваю мясо, хаваю мясо, хаваю мясо. I don't know. Which I honestly, to this, I've listened to this album probably like 3 or 4 times, maybe more, maybe five actually. I still don't really get Chavayu Miasa is literally like I chomp through meat or I like devour meat, which obviously when you translate to English kind of feels maybe a little bit strange. Um, so I'm not really sure what Chavayu Miasa would mean in Russian. Anyway, I'm gonna give this guy a break because he's from Tupasya, which is in the Russian South. It's between Krasnodar and Sochi, and it's a little resort town on the sea. So it's basically like, can you imagine if somebody from say like Fort Myers or yeah, let's say Fort Myers, Florida, released a rap album? It's like, yeah, it's fine. It's probably not going to be the best thing, but it's also not bad. And you know, just to give you a listen here. There's Morocco, Morocco. Seriously, yeah, of course, the buffering is gonna screw. There we go. Bounty, bounty, bounty. This is the other thing that I guess I forgot to write down in my notes, which is that his flow is very monotone and it doesn't switch up very much. It's kind of like how Ludacris always, not always, but many times will end his lines in like an upswing. Yeah. He does that little thing. Um, NikBro has the same flow throughout basically this entire mixtape, which not on every single one of the tracks. There are a few tracks where he doesn't. I want to say on Export or Phantom. I don't remember exactly right now. But it does get a little bit old. Again, like it's not bad. The production is good. Oh my god. Yeah. Not bad. Not bad by any means. Just also not super memorable. Like I said, I've listened to that album for probably 5 times, and I cannot remember any specific melody or even lines aside from Chavayu Miasa, which is like kind of dumb. Okay. And then now we are on to metal. So for anybody who's not a metal fan, I guess you can just deal with it. A lot of metal at the start of the year. And I don't know. It kind of feels like that is the case in the West too, where like in the wintertime, over the winter holidays, metal releases just keep going while the industry at large kind of settles down. There's probably a reason for that. Probably more of the underground aspect of the metal scene. But the first one we're going to talk about is a black metal release. And I'm going to be honest, there is just like an ungodly amount of black metal that is released in Russia and the Eastern European front, just by and large. I understand that like black metal is super popular too in the Nordic countries, but I feel like, especially in modern Russia, it is kind of becoming the dominant form of metal, which is unfortunate because I kind of hate black metal. Not that there's anything inherently wrong with it. It's just of all of the formulaic types of metal, um, or of all the types of metal, when black metal becomes formulaic, it is very just bland. Because like that kind of like the tremolo picking and the wall of noise. I guess if you don't know anything about metal, then this won't really mean anything to you. But however, I will try to highlight some of the good. In fact, a lot of the shitty albums that I listened to this week are black metal. But there was one that I thought was pretty good, and it is by a fella who goes by the name Balga. And the EP, and this is on, sorry, it is on Bandcamp. It's not available on Spotify. It's the Paganland EP. So I'm showing some love out to this too. Balga is from Kaliningrad, and I'm a big fan of Kaliningrad. Visited it the last 2 years running. And it's got a very European Baltic vibe to that area because it's on the Baltic Sea, obviously. But the thing that's kind of nice about this is it's black metal, but it's a little bit more than black metal. It's doing something different. There are some, I guess, that you call them like groovier sections. So, for example, on Battlestorm on the Baltic, we jump out to about old going on there or whatever that instrument is. I don't know. So like it's not straight up black metal here. There's definitely like some groovier element going on. And then on the track Balga Castle, right, we've also got kind of like some interesting little bit of an acoustic interlude here about right there. So just this like willingness to experiment with the black metal genre and the sound and incorporate elements like we have the sound of the ocean and a storm in the background. I appreciate that. And it makes the album a lot more interesting instead of just being like the traditional black metal album. The other thing I think is worth noting here is that this is an album in English. If you can figure out black metal lyrics, blast beats. If you can figure out black metal lyrics, then yeah, you'll be able to figure out what he's saying. You don't need to know Russian. So yeah, that was a pretty good one. I don't have anything beyond that to say. All right, we're done with Bandcamp. We're gonna go back to Spotify, and I'm gonna try to blow through the like the next few albums here relatively quickly. I don't want to spend too much time with them, mainly because quite a few of them I literally just discovered yesterday evening, so I haven't had a lot of time with them. And granted, most of them you don't need a lot of time with. The first one I want to talk about is Svetleet. Wait, hold on. Let me again just make sure I have also share tab audio. I'm paranoid on you. Okay, so Svetleet has this EP na grani. These guys are just like sort of blackened hardcore. It's a group of guys out of Chelyabinsk, and in their own description of the EP, they say these are 3 short stories of the obliteration of the borders between who you need to be and who you want to be. Now, I couldn't find the lyrics to these tracks, so I'm just gonna have to take their word for it. But yeah, it's black and hardcore. There's nothing too mysterious here about it. It's nice audio sample at the beginning, though. I'm not gonna lie. Oh my god, the buffering is kind of atrocious here. I apologize. There we go. Pretty straightforward. Again, just an EP. You're looking at about 10 minutes. Oh, well, there you go. 11 minutes and 32 seconds. So if you like hardcore, if you like blackened hardcore, which is black metal plus hardcore, it's worth a shot. Again, 10 minutes, not a huge time investment. Not at all. The next one I do want to call attention to is this album right here, Mystic Fear's Misdirection, or Misdirection by Mystic Fear, I guess is probably the better way to say it. This is brutal death metal. This is going to be for people who enjoy cryptopsy, Dying Fetus, Cannibal Corpse specifically. I think Cannibal Corpse is probably the better place to go off of. The reason there's not anything like massively crazy about this. It's just a brutal death metal. The lyrics are in English again, so if you can figure out brutal death metal lyrics, then you can understand what he's saying. Then you'll be able to understand what he's saying in English. The thing that I kind of want to highlight about this is that this is a single guy. This is a one-man band out of Krasnodar, Sergei Zakharov, and he has been working on this album for the last 4 to 5 years. So if you do like more extreme types of metal, then definitely give this guy a shot. Give him a little bit of some, give him a listen. Kind of come on, man. Like 4 to 5 years is a long time to dump into anything. And then to do all of this and just be ready for this. It's brutal death metal. But to do all of this, the guitars, the drums, the bass, and the vocals, that's a lot of work. So, and it's honestly, it's pretty good. It's not like life changing, but it's brutal death metal. So, yeah, I mean, again, not everybody's cup of tea. I get that 100%. But, you know, if it is yours, then definitely give them a shot. It's it's not a bad spin. Okay, we've got one more what I would say is just kind of like a decent album. And that is Ni страха, ni боли, ni сострадания by Skhikhan. This is going to be like your melodic hardcore slash metalcore. It's not exactly metalcore. There's definitely a lot more of the hardcore elements in it. But this group out of Moscow is doing a pretty good job. This is their second album. Again, it's 6 tracks long. It's not, I guess it's over 20 minutes, 25 minutes. It's not quite an EP. It's not quite what I'd normally consider an album, but I guess we'll consider it an album. Anyways, their second album in as many years. Um, yeah, it's not all that original, but if you like those genres of like hardcore and metalcore, then this is just like a pretty solid release overall. Like, we're not reinventing the wheel here, are we? But vocals are not the best when it comes to like this genre, but you know what this is going to anyway. Like, there's the breakdown. Like, you can't not have a breakdown in a song like this. So, yeah, it's again not reinventing the wheel, but it's definitely not bad. The production's pretty good. So, I give him points. I give him points, and yeah, who knows? Who knows? Maybe they'll keep churning along and plug out something amazing. All right, so we're gonna get to the 3 albums here. I have one surprise album at the very end. I'm keeping it in reserve. It's not metal, so for anybody who is not a metal fan and who's sitting through this metal section, like I have one hidden gem specifically for you and for everybody else. Um, but we're gonna talk about kind of what I would say like are the 3 main releases of this last week. The first one is by Trofobioz. I don't know exactly how you say this name, right? Trofobioz, Скупка нарабочих тел. This is a husband and wife duo out of the far, far Russian east. We're talking Kamchatka. We're talking that like dangly peninsula off of Alaska, out in that area. Petropavlovsk, Kamchatsky. They live like as far from Moscow pretty much as you can get. Um, they are making new metal, which basically utilizes every element of the genre that was cringe and like not true metal back in the first wave of new metal. Like heavy use of weird electronic noises. In fact, they utilized so many oddball electronic noises, but that's kind of like their whole fishka. Like that's what that kind of makes them special. A lot of chunky riffs. They do these soaring vocals in some tracks, and then they go back to like the screaming and the guttural, like in other ones. They have these slow, menacing tracks, and then they have these verses with these kind of like sung rap style vocals. On top of all that, they've got newer genty elements. Uh, so by and large, it's a sound that is very familiar, but at the same time, it's been rearranged in such a way to make it very, very unique. Um, the wife actually handles all of the vocals, but she does a very good job of it. The same way that arch enemies to female lead singers, Angela Gossow and Alyssa White Gulls, how they both do a very good job of just like going from kind of more female style vocals to that like really guttural kind of thing there. Um, she actually sings in English on a number of the songs, and there's actually a song where some of the lyrics are in Haitian Creole, if I figured that out correctly. I did call this new metal, but like, and that's definitely the genre it is. But all of this together, there's such an eclectic mix that it's definitely an oddity in the new metal genre, even at that. But it is a good one. So, like for example, this is probably the. Are we gonna get this? Heyo. Why is this not working? Okay, there it is. I mean, yeah, but keep your ears open for like electronic-y stuff. This is actually the husband. This actually might be one of the only times in the album you hear his voice. He is the guitarist. Just like these. That's not the electronic that I'm actually thinking of, but so yeah. New metal, very new metally. But and there are other tracks that are a bit different. More so, I would say even less new metally or more different than that. But I would say that's a decent idea of what we're getting into. Okay, so the next album we're going to talk about is one that again I heard last night at like 12:30. So I was getting ready to go to bed and I was looking at what albums had come out in the second half of the day yesterday, and I saw this this album, Запечатлённый дьявол by Мёртвая Вера. Запечатлённый, yeah. Запечатлённый дьявол by Мёртвая Вера. This album, I think if it had come out earlier in the week, would have been a contender for the top spot. I'm gonna actually listen to it a few more times before before next Wednesday. So maybe I'll have some more to say about it. But then this is the metal that I have been waiting for. Like when George Bush was president, the United States was in war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and there was just like a lot of simmering resentment in society. We had a wonderful time with metal, just like a lot of good metal was coming out. And I've kind of been waiting for that here in Russia. Now, like I said, black metal is kind of the big thing. So a lot of that frustration is channeled into that. It's channeled into like this black metal tends to be more introspective in terms of that, or like more abstract instead of like focused on direct things that you're pissed off about, which is obviously why black metal is not as huge in the States. I don't know. It's like a different discussion entirely. This is not black metal. And I assumed it was black metal judging by the artwork because it looks like some black metal nonsense. This is it's not, and honestly, like the first 10 seconds of the album feel like black metal. They sound like black metal. This is 100% like groove thrash metal. Um, Although there are a lot of death metal and black metal elements, there's even some deathcore going on in there. I did a little research into them. Mёrтвая Вера as a group has been doing this for a while. They've had a number of EPs released already, but this is their first full length. And yeah, if you just look at the titles of these, I'm not going to translate them in English. You can do that in your own time. But if you know Russian, you will see that they are not very happy. This one is not really happy about God. This is telling you to eat something, we'll say excrement, um, beat those that you love, father hair. Like these are very um, cartel of cripples. There's a lot of directed anger here. I guess we'll say. I'm honestly surprised that like this has not been pulled off of the Russian streaming services already, just because of like these titles are kind of in the current Russian climate here culturally, they are very pointed. So yeah, these guys don't seem like they're huge fans of the current political situation, current political state of affairs. Um, but yeah, this is honestly like a very close second, and I only have listened to this once, so keep that in mind. Like I said, this might have been the number one album. It's probably not. The next one I'm going to talk about is definitely like just like a I'm in love with it. But and honestly, the fact that they got Grizzly Knows No Remorse, these guys have been on the Moscow metal scene for I don't know how long, and like the fact that they are working with them is like a huge, great guys. This is a huge plus in my book. But yeah, I mean, like just to give you an idea of what we're looking at. Yeah, I guess we'll. Yeah, not. Oh my god, the buffering. Oh, this is gonna be something that as I do this over the yeah, there we go. Okay. That's very groovy, right? Like that is groove metal. Well, it's not the grooviest of groove metals, but it's kind of thrashy too. But and then we're gonna just jump it. The speed is very thrashy. This is groovy as hell though. So yeah, pretty solid album all around. And yeah, I like I said, this probably uh very easily the number two pick for me for the week. But we got to talk about what I think is the best album of this first week of 2025. And that might sound like a kind of an easy like there hasn't been too many there haven't been too many amazing albums here. This album, Oven, by Zlo, is kind of amazing. These crazy sons of bitches, they published it at 12:05, like literally 5 minutes after it rolled over into 2025. They released this and they decided to like literally just drop the mic. They released what will probably be one of the best Russian metal albums of the year. This bar has just been set so high with this album. I know what I was just talking about with Mёrtвая Вера. Like, it's a good album, but it's not, I would say, doing a lot of stuff that's like super, super original. It's just like a super solid album. This album, Oven, is it's fresh. I don't know how else to describe it. This is a group out of St. Petersburg. This is their second album, and I want to talk right now. I want to get like the comparisons out of the way because it's kind of easy, but it's also kind of fair. Slipknot. We got to talk about Slipknot. And as somebody who comes from Des Moines, Iowa, those are the hometown heroes in a lot of regards. And growing up, like their albums were what got me into heavier types of metal. And one of the big albums that pushed that forward is Iowa, which oddly enough also featured a goat on the cover of the album. That was the transition. That was the album that saw Slipknot expand their sound, um, kind of push into being a little bit more experimental in some regards and also being a little bit more aggressive. But even if they were being more experimental and opening up their sound, they were still incredibly pissed off. In fact, more than ever. Zlo here, this is also their second album. We got a goat on the cover. It also feels like an album where, while you're listening, they are ready to just rip the world down, like just burn it to the ground. Um, they've got their own anthem akin to "People Equal Shit" on "Krov is Nosa." And honestly, when you listen to this, the DJ scratches are pure. Like the DJ scratches are old school Slipknot. The rage there, though, that just like thin, so barely controlled. Now, I couldn't find the lyrics for the album. I will let that be known right out the gates. And I don't want to make it seem like this is all just all anger here. That they want to burn everything down and walk away from it. There is, I want to say, like elements of the music here, and I would assume in the lyrics too, if I could find them. There are some elements here which make it seem as though there's like this idea that they burn everything to the ground, and then from the ashes something better is going to come. Like that, there is this hope, this push towards betterment. That like they're pissed off at the current state of things, and like they want things to be better, which is generally how it is in metal music. Um, but yeah, I also want to point out that even though there are a lot of similarities with Slipknot, a lot of parallels that can be drawn here, and I am going to draw more. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's not just a knockoff in any regard. There's a lot of hardcore influences in here, like the speed and the drumming at the beginning of the song Yama. Give it a second. Are my notes wrong? Where's the speed and drumming here that I'm? Okay, maybe I don't know what I was talking about when I wrote that. There definitely is a hardcore element there, though, 100%. The singing here at the beginning of Syrian, though, is definitely something that I would say is Zlo's own personal touch, with the female vocals that are kind of, you might say, like a traditional Russian folk song style. Also feels a little bit like System of a Down, but I guess, yeah, now that I'm thinking about it quite a bit, it does remind me of Serge from System of a Down, right? But and then honestly, there's this track, Ganazium, which has honestly, like, it's got the female vocals, but it's got this more of contemplative, reflective acoustic guitar thing going on with it as well. Um, like it's after all of the rage in the other tracks before it, it is definitely like a much um it's yeah, there we go, right? There's the female vocals. And it has a bit of a more traditional Russian, or like I guess you could maybe say Slavic feel to it. So uh it's not, these aren't guys who are trying to sound like Slipknot. Their sound is heavily influenced by Slipknot, especially that's like, again, the Iowa album 100%. Um And I mean, like, again, just to draw one last parallel here. The final track, Abarot, has this um slow burn. It's like this menacing atmosphere, which is, if you go back and you listen to Slipknot's self-titled their first albums, the self-titled one, Scissors, the final track has that same vibe. And then on the Iowa album, the Iowa track, the final track, has the same vibe. So like it's slowly builds, and it like eventually builds up to like this, it starts to work its way to the surface. Um yeah. There's also like just two other moments from this album which I am heavily in love with, and I just want to share. One of these is on Krasnaya Bolota. It's about the we're gonna start at 145 ish. So we got the speed here, got like kind of thrashy hardcore speed right here, right? But give it a second, we'll come around to it. Like a tonal shift, right? I don't even know. I don't. The chords going like a major chord sound, right? Nee, 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 nee. Those little shifts throughout the song, like they, there's so many little surprises like that in this album, and there are so many good songs here. But I have to say, like if you're not totally sold on it, the hook on Zarazhenia, um, this song right here is the one. It was definitely an album the first time I listened to it. I I knew I was hearing something big, but I couldn't quite grasp onto something. And then the second time, like I was tumbling down a stream just because like there were so many not musical, yeah, I guess musical ideas happening there, and so much pent up rage and whatever built up. The second time through, trying to grab all these slippery stones, I finally caught a hold on something, and it was in Zarazhenia, and it's so goddamn catchy. Hold on. We're gonna go back to that. Give it a second. And we're gonna skip ahead to the 30-second mark. Again, very fast, very thrashy, very hardcore. So this is one of the things which differs from Slipknot. Here it comes though. Still love this. Kind of feel like we're working towards a breakdown, but the juxtaposition here, the just like the pure rage in those vocals with the female vocals in the background, the la 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 la. And obviously that comes through later on. And the phrase to in Russian, "Время калечит," like just the way it's delivered is so goddamn. It's literally like time will break you. Um, if I had to, um, if I had to, I guess just translate it off the top of my head. I might be a little bit off there. If I am, if somebody has a better translation for "Время калечит," let me know. But yeah, I Oven by Zlo is, I think, hands down the best album of the first week of 2025. I think it is going to be possibly the best album of the month. I'm just calling that right now. I mean, it's possible that with the Indian rap scenes just slowly coming out of hibernation, something we might get something more with that. Um, but yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna require some just like next tier music to knock this out of the top metal albums of 2025 here in Russia. And I'll be completely honest, this is the type of album that could easily go toe to toe with whatever metal is being produced in Europe or the United States right now. Like this is a phenomenal album, and it is definitely worth, like it's worth your time. If I mean if you like metal. If you don't like metal, then obviously like this isn't for you. But if you give, yeah, if you give metal a listen to every once in a while, then like definitely hit this up. Okay, so we're through the metal. There's one last album I got to talk about, and I I want this to be a surprise. This is technically not a new album. This is звуковые и биоэлектрические сигналы рыб, or sound and bioelectrical signals of fish. This is technically a re-release. This is a re-release of an album recorded in the 19, I think it was 1980, in fact, and finally re-released onto streaming platforms just at the start of the year. This is technically field recordings, but it is such a weird album. It's it's literally what it is. It's sound and bioelectrical signals of fish. So Igor Nikolsky, the guy who is the artist here, I suppose if you want to call him that. If you don't understand Russian, he's going to talk a little bit at the beginning. He's going to give a little bit of explanation at the beginning of each of these tracks. But for the most part, yeah, it's just him talking about fish and most fish don't have special electrical organs. All the same, the buffering has all the electrical signals given out by electric fish have a biological. Sorry, I'm not a real time translator, but this is it. Just listen carefully. You hear that like pew, pew. Those are the electrical signals of a common catfish. This is the sound of a school of fish beating against something or other. I don't remember exactly. This is basically what the Nature Channel was, I guess, before the Nature Channel existed. It was audio. I suppose there are probably some pictures that hopefully came with the album. Obviously, there is a an image which is not going to load properly, but it's a very, very odd listen. But at the same time, there's kind of something just fun about it. Um, most of the time, it sounds like a microphone got placed into a dryer, like a like from the spin cycle on a dryer. But every once in a while, like with just the sound of the water in the background, you can almost imagine that it's a fish making the noise. So very, very odd recordings. Obviously, they were meant for educational purposes and for research purposes, but now they are available to the public. And so, if anybody wants to hear the signals or the sounds and biological signals, or sorry, the sounds, yeah, sounds and bioelectrical signals of fish, that is also one of the albums that was re-released this week from about 45 years ago. So all right, and that's it. That is all of the music from the first week of 2025. I'm already going to be looking out this evening for which other albums have been released today, or at least I would say in the second half of the day. So I'll be getting ready already for next week. Um, like I said, I will in the description to this video have links to all of the albums that I talked about. I know I screwed up the audio for like the first three tracks that I talked about, but the link to the Spotify playlist is there as well. If there is somebody watching from Russia and if they want me to make a playlist on Yandex Music, let me know. I will do that as well. But my goal, by and large, is to show people outside of Russia what music is happening here in Russia, just along with other stuff that's happening here in Russia. So, but yeah, I guess it went okay. A little bit longer. Hopefully, in the future, I'll be able to shrink it down a little bit, make it about an hour long. But it is what it is. I'm sure the YouTube algorithm is going to hate the fact that I was playing music, but hopefully, you heard something that was kind of interesting. Hopefully, you heard something that caught your attention. And yeah, check the video description when it goes to the live tab on my channel. In the video description, I will put Spotify links and Bandcamp links to those which are necessary. I'll put links to all of those albums in the video description, and then you can go check them out, the ones which appealed to you. So I will be back next Wednesday again. I think maybe next Wednesday we'll do an hour later. Perhaps we'll do it at like 9 o'clock. I haven't decided yet. I understand Wednesday's kind of an odd day in Moscow. I guess it doesn't really matter. In the States, what, like 9 o'clock in the evening at Moscow is 10 o'clock in the morning Central Time, 11 East Coast. So it's not the most convenient. But again, if you're at work, I guess you can just kind of turn this on and maybe catch snippets, or it's just something you can pick up later on. I'll figure it out. If you're interested, if you enjoyed this, give it a like. Obviously, share this with anybody who might be interested in hearing some new music out of Russia. And yeah, if you like this kind of thing and you want to hear more and see more, then just keep your eyes open on the channel for upcoming live videos. I'll probably post the link next Tuesday evening for the next one. As far as what's been happening here in Russia on the sort of news front, the political front, then stay tuned into that on Sunday evenings as usual. But everyone have a good week. Tomorrow is the first real work day here in Russia, so it's back to reality for us as well. And until Sunday, I guess, take care, everyone.